Hello from the Fireside Storyteller. Have you ever jumped to a conclusion that turned out to be completely wrong? Sometimes the simplest explanation is right in front of us, but we get caught up in our worries and we imagine the worst. Tonight's tale is the Hunchback's Tale from 1001 Nights, also known as the Arabian Nights. This ancient collection of stories has been entertaining, teaching wisdom to people for hundreds of years, and today's tale is about just such a situation of jumping to conclusions. The Hunchback's Tale. Long ago, in a busy market, lived a cheerful hunchback who could make anyone smile. His jokes and his silly songs brought such delight that even the king invited him to perform at the palace. But our story begins one evening when a kind-hearted tailor and his wife invited the hunchback to share their dinner. The evening was filled with laughter as the hunchback told stories between bites of fish. But in one careless moment, while laughing at his own joke, he accidentally swallowed a large fishbone. His eyes went wide, he clutched his throat, and before anyone can help, he slumped over, appearing completely lifeless. The tailor and his wife were beside themselves with worry. What would they think if he did this on purpose? The tailor fretted, wringing his hands. Oh, we've got to do something about this. In their panic, they carried the hunchback to a Jewish doctor's house and propped him by the door. And when the doctor came out later, he stumbled over the hunchback in the dark. The poor doctor was horrified when the hunchback didn't move. "Oh no!" cried the doctor. "They'll say that I killed him." So he secretly moved the hunchback to the next street, leaving him near a merchant's shop. The merchant, he returned home late that night. He thought the hunchback was a thief, and he got his walking stick and he struck the walking stick on the hunchback. And when the hunchback fell over without a sound, the merchant's face went pale. "Murder! They'll say I'm a murderer!" He quickly turned the hunchback to another neighborhood. So it went through the darkened streets of the city. The supposedly dead hunchback was passed from person to person, each one convinced that they had caused his death, each trying to avoid the blame. Finally, as morning approached, the last person in the chain of misunderstanding was caught by the night watch. The case was brought before the king himself. As each person told their part of the story, the tailor, the doctor, the merchant, and the others, the king's expressions changed from serious to puzzled amusement. Just then, a clever barber stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing low, "might I examine this poor fellow?" The king nodded, and the barber carefully examined the hunchback. With skilled hands, he found the fishbone stuck in the hunchback's throat. In moments, he had removed it, and to everyone's amazement, the hunchback sat up, coughing and sputtering. "Water!" he gasped. "And please, no more fish." The entire court burst into laughter, including the king. All those who had thought themselves murderers now realized how foolish their fears had been. The hunchback, once he understood what had happened, thought it was the funniest thing he had ever heard, and immediately he began composing a song about his adventures as a dead man. Now, this is something of a silly story, but sometimes our fears can make us imagine the worst possible outcome. But just like the people in our story, we might discover that what seems terrible at first has a much simpler explanation. The next time you find yourself worrying about the worst possible scenario, and we did a lot of those, remember our friend the hunchback, and just take a moment to maybe look for a simpler answer that may not be so horrible. Have you ever had a time when you worried about something that turned out to be much simpler than you thought? Please share your story in the comments below. Maybe some of us will get a laugh as well. And if you enjoyed a tale of misunderstandings and midnight adventures, don't forget to like and subscribe the Fireside Storyteller for more stories that remind us to look on the lighter side of life. Until next time, remember, sometimes the best medicine for worry is simply a good laugh.